What do the University of Texas, the University of Iowa, San Diego State, the University of Arkansas, Virginia's Appalachian School of Law, and the University of Arizona Nursing College, and Shepherd University, and Shepherd Towns, West Virginia, and Virginia Tech all have in common? The answer is college campus shootings resulting in death, and many of them multiple deaths. What may be more troubling is the data we find when we begin researching at schools that are not colleges. KDKA.com, a CBS website, and NBC.com both confirm that there have been 58 shooting incidents in high school and unfortunately middle schools, many of them resulting in multiple deaths, and this is just in the last 12 years. The question is, what are the schools doing about it? What is law enforcement doing about it? And is there anything we can do about it? And by we, I mean you and me. My name's Scott Moore. In addition to being one of your classmates, I sit on the National Corporate Advisory Council for Tyco Simplex Grinnell. It's a billion-dollar security and fire safety corporation. The reason that I'm going down this horrible path is it can't be ignored. There's no reason to believe that we have seen the last of these tragedies, and I would be remiss if I didn't do my part and share this information and then ask you, if the time comes to take action, that you do it too. You might ask what action, and I'll come back to that. I will begin by sharing with you what is happening on college campuses to help mitigate the damage caused by these tragedies. And some of what I'm about to share to you, you might already be aware of. Next, I will fill you on what is taking place to prevent these occurrences on middle school and high school campuses. And lastly, I will ask you to do your part. I would like to start by going over the types of emergency mass notification. The first is the use of email. Email is the first they came up with because it's self-contained. It means you don't need multiple disciplines to make it happen. Email was the first campus-wide emergency mass notification to be utilized. According to campussafety.com, though, the problem with email is that people don't check it enough to make it real time. According to the online dictionary, real time is defined as information that is transferred at the time the event is occurring. By the time someone checks their email, critical information may have changed, causing the email to become a tool that would put individuals in danger. An area described as safe might no longer be safe. In fact, it might be a hot zone. Mass cell phone dialing is another emergency mass notification and could be accomplished in a matter that could be real time as long as the time it took to call all the phone calls and the event were at the same time. If the event lasted longer, it may not in fact be real time. The next type of mass notification is mass text messaging. And mass text messaging is a real-time form of communication, and students do check their text messages in class, so it works. In fact, your school probably is using text messaging, and you should probably check to see how that system works and if your school has it. The last and most effective form of emergency mass notification is the use of a personal address or PA systems or an audible tower system, and this works for real-time emergency mass communication. This is the only real-time emergency mass communication system, but it's only if it's tied to an electronic triggering mechanism. If you have to wait for someone to get to something and then do it, then it's not real-time. According to Dr. Avedon Alden, emergency mass notification system was put in the hot zones of Iraq, and it worked because it was attached to radar. The system worked as follows. The tower speaker were attached to computers, and the computers were attached to radar units. And that's how that system worked. The problem with the systems is that it relies on some type of a triggering device, and if that triggering device is a human being getting to a transmitter, then it sometimes isn't real time. It probably has to be pre-recorded. So, I'm sorry to report that there's no research found that emergency mass notification systems are being implemented in middle schools or high schools. I would ask you to remember that at the time that there were 6 college shooting events, there were 58 such middle school and high school events. You can determine as to why higher education is getting far more attention. To be fair, high schools and middle schools do have a police presence more in high school than middle schools. I spoke earlier about the steps we must take or that we could take to prevent the need for emergency mass notification for an on-campus emergency of this nature, and I'd like to do that now. I'd like to tell you what your response should be. In almost every case, there were warning signs that the shooter was troubled. On CBSNews.com, it was made clear at Virginia Tech there were clear warning signs. It is essential that when we see troubled individuals, that we take a genuine interest in making sure that they are getting the attention they require. People are reporting firsthand knowledge of troubled individuals, but is it always being followed through? In a new book, a former Virginia Tech professor writes that she saw warning signs before the attack on the campus. It goes on to say that she tried to sound the alarm, and this was reported to CBS News anchor Katie Couric, but no one listened. Well, I'm telling you that trying to sound the alarm is not good enough. We know the results of trying to sound the alarm. Friends, we cannot look the other way. It doesn't stop with strangers. We have a responsibility with family members to help them find help. We're not doing anyone any favors by watching someone self-destruct if we have the knowledge that there are guns available to this depressed individual and there are warning signs. We must react. When those two come together, we must react. We must react quickly. It was reported in Green Creek, Idaho, CNN. It was just 2.5 years ago when Elaine Sonnen found out that her 16-year-old son, Richard, had been planning a Columbine-style attack at his high school. She got her son help and prevented the attack. If it's urgent enough that law enforcement be notified, it's urgent enough that we follow up. Now, I know for most of you, the subject is just too terrible to reflect on for any length of time. And together we just looked at some of the reactions and changes that the private and public sectors have put into place to try and minimize the outcomes of these human tragedies. We talked about the different forms of emergency mass communication, from email to cell phone to text messaging to public address systems. We learned that while these systems are steps in the right direction, they really address the symptoms and do not do anything to help with the problem and do nothing to prevent the initial outcome. The problem is probably the topic for another speech, but we can and we must react to warning signs in a proper fashion. It is my hope that you will find what type of emergency mass communication your college is utilizing and then be aware of it and react accordingly. I also ask that should you become aware of a disturbed or otherwise depressed individual, you follow through as necessary. I promise you I will. Thank you.